pulse of him.
The first thing that hit me was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the wrong kind. The kind that settles in a place that's supposed to be loud. The gym at night had its own heartbeat, clanking plates, low music, people breathing hard through sets. But when I pulled my earbuds out, all I heard was the hum of fluorescent lights and my own pulse, still racing from the last round of deadlifts. It was almost midnight. I hadn't meant to stay that late. I never did. I checked my phone. No signal. Typical. The basement level always swallowed reception whole. I wiped my hands on my shorts and headed toward the locker rooms, already mentally halfway home, thinking about a shower and collapsing into bed. That's when the lights dimmed. Not off. Just low. Emergency bright instead of full glare. I stopped walking. Seriously? I muttered, glancing around. The cardio area was empty. No front desk staff. No music. Just me and the echo of my own voice. Then I heard it. A deep exhale. Slow. Controlled. Not mine. I turned. Ronan was still there. He was standing near the squat racks, chalk on his hands, tank clinging to him like it had given up trying to pretend it wasn't impressed. I'd seen him around before, hard not to. The biggest guy in the gym, always alone, always focused. The kind of presence you felt even when you didn't look directly at him. We locked eyes. For a second, either of us spoke. It felt like interrupting something sacred, like walking in on a thought mid-sentence. "Looks like they're closing early," he said finally. His voice was low. Not rough. Just grounded. It settled somewhere in my chest and stayed there. "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Guess so." I tried to sound normal. Casual. Like my heart hadn't kicked up a notch just because he was looking at me. He glanced toward the exit doors. Then back at me. "They usually do a walkthrough first," he said. "Means we might be locked in for a bit." That took a second to register. "Locked in?" He nodded once. Calm. Like this was weather. Happened before. Power cycles. Doors don't unlock until the system resets. I laughed, sharp and short. "You're kidding." He didn't smile. Not unfriendly, just honest. "I don't kid about being stuck in a building," he said. Great. We stood there, the space between us suddenly very noticeable. The gym felt bigger and smaller at the same time, every shadow stretching just a little too far. "I'm Henry," I said because silence was worse. "Ronan." We shook hands. His grip was firm, warm, chalk dry. The contact lasted half a second longer than necessary. Or maybe I imagined that. I hoped I imagined that. "So," I said, pulling my hand back and flexing my fingers like they needed it. "We just wait?" "For now," he said. "Emergency lights mean backup power. Could be 15 minutes. Could be longer." I nodded, suddenly very aware of the sweat cooling on my skin. Of the fact that I was alone with him. Of the way his attention didn't drift when I spoke, like he was actually listening, not just waiting. We sat on opposite benches near the lockers. The quiet pressed in, but it wasn't awkward. Not exactly. It was heavy. Charged. Like something unspoken had been plugged into the walls along with the lights. "You train late a lot?" he asked. "Only when I don't want to go home yet," I said before thinking. His eyes flicked up. Curious. Not invasive. "Same," he said. That simple agreement landed harder than it should have. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Time felt strange in the dim light. I found myself noticing stupid things. How he rolled his shoulders like he was shaking off more than muscle fatigue. How his breathing slowed the longer we sat there. How safe and trapped I felt at the same time. "I don't mind the quiet," he said eventually. "Just not used to sharing it." I swallowed. "Yeah. Me either." We sat there a little longer, the hum of the lights filling the space where words didn't need to be. And for the first time that night, I realized something important. I wasn't in a hurry anymore. The minutes stretched. The emergency lights stayed stubbornly dim. No alarms. No footsteps. Just the building breathing around us like it had decided we weren't going anywhere. Ronan stood first, rolling his neck, the movement slow and deliberate. "I'm going to check the exit again," he said. "Sometimes it resets on its own." I nodded and followed without thinking. The gym floor felt different now, quieter, more intimate. Our footsteps echoed too clearly, like the place was listening. At the front doors, he tested the handle. Nothing. Solid. Locked like it meant it. "Yeah," he said calmly. "Still sealed." I exhaled, half laughing. "So we're officially trapped." "For a bit," he said, turning to face me. "But we're safe." That word, safe, landed heavier than it should have. I hadn't realized how tense I'd been until my shoulders dropped. We leaned against the wall near the entrance, not touching, but close enough that I could feel his warmth without needing to look. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was thick. Expectant. "You always this calm?" I asked. He shrugged. "Only when panicking won't help." I smiled at that. "Must be nice." His eyes flicked to me. Studied. "You don't seem like someone who panics much either." I almost told him the truth, that my head was loud most of the time, that stillness usually made things worse, but instead I just said, "Guess we both hide it well." Time slipped again. We wandered back toward the free weights, talking about nothing and everything. Training schedules? Bad playlists? Why people filmed themselves curling 10 pounds like it was an Olympic lift. The conversation came easy, surprising both of us. At some point, the temperature dropped. Sweat cooled. The gym felt cavernous. "You cold?" he asked. "A little." Without making a big deal of it, he grabbed one of the spare hoodies from his bag and handed it to me. It was warm. Heavy. It smelled faintly like him, clean, metallic, real. "Thanks," I said quietly. "Any time." I pulled it on, suddenly aware of how close we were standing. Too close to pretend it didn't matter. Not close enough to cross a line. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us hummed, not with urgency, but with restraint. With awareness. There was heat there, unmistakable, but held back, contained. Whatever might have happened stayed just beneath the surface, unspoken, unacted on. Ronan took a small step back. Gave me space. The choice felt intentional. Respectful. "Backup generators usually kick the system eventually," he said. "We won't be here all night." I nodded, though a part of me wasn't sure how I felt about that. We sat again, side by side this time, not touching, but no longer pretending we were strangers. The gym felt less like a place and more like a pause, something suspended between before and after. In that quiet, I realized something else too. Being stuck wasn't the unsettling part anymore. It was the idea of leaving. The longer we sat there, the more the gym stopped feeling like a public place. It turned into something quieter. Contained. Like the rest of the world had been paused just for us. Ronan shifted beside me, forearms resting on his thighs. I noticed how careful he was with space, close enough to feel, far enough to ask permission without words. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. Then, more honestly, "I think so." He nodded, accepting that for what it was. A faint mechanical click echoed somewhere deep in the building. We both looked up at the same time. "That might have been the system," I said. "Or just the building settling," he replied. Neither of us moved to check. There was a moment, small but unmistakable, where I realized we were both choosing stillness. Choosing not to rush the end of this strange pocket of time. Ronan leaned back against the bench, exhaling slowly. "Can I say something without making it weird?" I laughed under my breath. "At this point, I think weird already won." He smiled. "Just barely." "Fair." His gaze stayed forward as he spoke. "I noticed you earlier. Before tonight. You don't train like someone trying to impress people." My throat tightened. Is that a compliment? It's an observation, he said. But yeah, it's a compliment. I turned my head to look at him. He met my eyes this time. No bravado. No pressure. Just honesty. I'm not great at pretending, I said quietly. I know, he said. That's why I noticed. The space between us shrank, not because either of us leaned in, but because we stopped holding it apart. Our arms brushed. Just once. Accidental enough to be deniable. Intentional enough to matter. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. The contact sent something warm and sharp through me, the kind of feeling that usually comes with anticipation, not action. Everything stayed restrained. Controlled. Charged. Ronan's voice dropped. If this feels like too much, say so. I shook my head. It doesn't. Another pause. Longer this time. The gym lights flickered once, then steadied. The moment didn't break. He turned slightly toward me, slow enough that I could have stopped it. I didn't. His knee lined up with mine, close but not pressing. His presence was overwhelming in the quietest way, solid, grounding, patient. This isn't what I expected tonight, he said. Me either. But I'm glad it happened, he added. So was I. More than I wanted to admit. We sat like that, close and careful, letting the heat between us exist without crossing into anything uncensored or rushed. The restraint itself felt intimate. Like we were building something just by not breaking it. Eventually, the silence softened. Settled. Became less about tension and more about comfort. I leaned back, breathing evenly, wrapped in his hoodie, wrapped in the strange safety of being seen without being pushed. Whatever this was, it didn't need to hurry. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the urge to leave. The building hummed again, deeper this time. A vibration under the floor, like something big turning over in its sleep. Ronan noticed it too. His posture shifted, alert but unbothered. That's new, he said. Good new or bad new? Good, he replied after a second. Means the system's waking up. I nodded, though my attention drifted back to the space between us. Or rather, the lack of it. Sitting this close had stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like a fact. Ronan stood and offered a hand. Not urgent. Not commanding. Just there. Walk with me, he said. If the lights come back, they'll be brighter. Might as well not be surprised by it. I took his hand. The contact was simple, palm to palm, but it carried weight. His hand was warm, steady, grounding. He didn't squeeze. Didn't pull. Just walked beside me like this was the most natural thing in the world. We moved slowly through the gym, past machines that looked softer under emergency light, less imposing. Shadows shifted as we walked, stretching and collapsing around us. You ever notice how different places feel when they're empty? I asked. All the time, he said. Feels more honest. Yeah, I agreed. Like they stop performing. He glanced at me. People do that too. The lights flickered, once, twice, then snapped back to full brightness. Music didn't return. Just clarity. Sharp edges. Reality. We both blinked. There it was, the subtle jolt back into the real world. The reminder that this moment had been borrowed, not owned. Ronan let go of my hand, but not abruptly. The separation felt intentional, respectful. Like closing a book instead of dropping it. Doors should unlock now, he said. We stood there for a beat longer than necessary. Hey, I said before I could overthink it. He looked at me, attentive. Tonight didn't feel like nothing, I said. Not a question. Not a demand. Just the truth. His expression softened. No, he said. It didn't. At the entrance, the doors slid open with a quiet click. Cool night air rolled in, carrying the distant sounds of traffic and life moving on. We stepped just inside the threshold and stopped. Not outside yet. Not ready. I'm usually here late, he said. Same days. Same time. I smiled. Me too. There was no promise in it. No pressure. Just possibility. We exchanged a look, one that held recognition without urgency. Whatever this was, it didn't need to be named tonight. We parted with a nod. A shared understanding. And as I stepped out into the night, hoodie still warm on my skin, I felt something rare and steady settle in my chest. Not anticipation. Not regret. Just a quiet certainty that some moments linger, not because they explode, but because they breathe. I thought about that night more than I expected to. Not in a dramatic, replay it on loop way. More like a low hum in the background of my days. The kind you only notice when everything else goes quiet. I'd catch myself slowing down at the gym entrance, listening for sounds that weren't there yet. I started timing my workouts differently without admitting why. A week passed. Then another. The gym went back to being loud again, music too aggressive, people too close, mirrors too honest. But something had shifted for me. Like the space remembered what happened, even if no one else did. I was halfway through a late workout when I felt it, that familiar awareness before sight. I looked up from re-racking weights and there he was. Ronan. Same calm presence. Same focus. Different energy. He didn't stare. Didn't interrupt. Just caught my eye across the floor and nodded, like we'd already been in the middle of a conversation. Something in my chest eased. Later, by the water fountain, he stood beside me. Not crowding. Just there. Hey, he said. Hey. That was it. No big moment. No explanation. And somehow, that made it better. We fell into a rhythm after that. Late nights. Shared glances. Short conversations that said more in what they didn't push for. Sometimes we trained near each other. Sometimes not. The tension stayed, but it softened, turning into something steadier. Something earned. One night, the gym emptied faster than usual. A storm rolled in outside, rain hammering the windows. We sat on the same bench as before, not touching, but close enough that it felt intentional now. You ever feel like some things only exist if you don't rush them? He asked. I thought about it. About us. About that night. Yeah, I said. Like if you name them too fast, they disappear. He smiled at that. Really smiled. We didn't cross lines. We didn't pretend there weren't any. What passed between us stayed contained, looks held a second longer, breaths synced without noticing, warmth shared without claiming. It was intimate without being explicit. Charged without being reckless. Eventually, the storm eased. The gym lights dimmed for closing. We stood, side by side, either of us in a hurry. Same time tomorrow? He asked, casual, careful. Yeah, I said. Same time. We walked out together, then parted, no touching, no promises. Just the quiet understanding that some connections don't need fireworks to burn bright. Outside, the air smelled like rain and clean pavement. I took a deep breath and felt grounded in a way I hadn't in a long time. Whatever this was, it was real. And it was still unfolding. The routine held longer than I expected. Late nights. Familiar nods. That quiet understanding that lives somewhere between restraint and want. It became easy to rely on him, without realizing how much space it had started to take up in my head. Then one night it cracked. The gym was nearly empty again, but this time the quiet felt different. Heavier. Like the air was waiting for something to be acknowledged. Ronan finished his set and sat beside me, forearms resting on his thighs. He didn't speak right away. Neither did I. You ever get tired of pretending you're fine with slow? He asked finally. The question caught me off guard. Not because it was aggressive, but because it wasn't. I swallowed. Depends on what slow is protecting me from. He nodded like that made sense. And what it's keeping you from. That landed. We sat there, knees almost touching. Not quite. The distance felt intentional. Fragile. I don't want to rush you, he added quietly. Or scare you off. I turned toward him. Really looked at him. The calm was still there, but underneath it was something taut. Held back. Chosen. You're not, I said. But I need to know we're not just orbiting forever. His jaw tightened for half a second, then relaxed. Come with me, he said. Not out. Not home. Just deeper into the building, toward the stretching room at the far end. Glass walls. Dimmer lights. Still public enough to matter. We stood facing each other there, close enough now that the warmth between us wasn't theoretical anymore. I could feel it. The restraint hummed louder. I don't do half steps, he said. But I do patience. If it's mutual. My chest felt tight, but steady. It is. That was all the permission either of us took. He didn't touch me right away. Instead, he leaned in until our foreheads nearly aligned, breath close enough to share. The moment hovered, charged, controlled. Anything explicit stayed just out of frame, blurred by intention and respect. I closed my eyes. When he finally pulled back, it wasn't abrupt. It was deliberate. Grounding. Not tonight, he said softly. But not never. I nodded, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. We left the room together, shoulders brushing once, enough to confirm what we'd decided without breaking the quiet agreement. The gym felt different again. Less suspended. More real. Outside, the night air was cool, steady. I walked to my car slower than usual, letting the moment settle instead of chasing it. For the first time, I understood something clearly. Want didn't have to rush to be loud. Sometimes it just had to be honest. The shift happened quietly. Not in the gym. Not under the lights or between sets. It happened in the spaces after, texts sent later than necessary, pauses that stretched longer than casual, the way our names started to feel heavier when they appeared on each other's phones. We didn't talk about it outright. We didn't need to. Something had already crossed from patience into intention. It was a Friday night when it finally surfaced. The gym had closed, the storm outside rattling the windows again like it wanted to be let in. We stood by our cars in the parking lot, rain misting the pavement, either of us reaching for the door handles. You ever notice, Ronan said slowly, how some nights don't want to end? I looked at him. Really looked. The calm was still there, but so was the edge. The wanting that had learned how to wait. Yeah, I said. This feels like one of them. He nodded once. Then he did something small that meant everything. He stepped closer, closing the space without touching. Close enough that I could feel his body heat through the cool air. Close enough that pretending felt dishonest. I'm not asking for anything you don't want, he said. But I don't want to keep pretending I don't want you. The honesty hit harder than anything physical could have. My chest tightened, then steadied. I don't want pretending either, I said. We didn't kiss. Not then. Not in the rain, not in the open, not rushed by the world watching. Instead, he lifted his hand and rested it against my side, firm, grounding, unmistakably there. The contact was brief. Controlled. Enough to say everything without crossing into what we'd promised to take slow. The rain softened around us. He leaned in, forehead nearly touching mine, breath shared but restrained. The moment blurred at the edges, not because it wasn't intense, but because it was too personal to sharpen into detail. Tomorrow, he said quietly. I nodded. Tomorrow. That single word carried weight. Direction. Consent without pressure. He stepped back first, giving me space the way he always did. Respect woven into everything he touched, even what he wanted. We got into our cars and drove off separately, taillights disappearing into the rain, the connection stretching instead of snapping with distance. That night, lying in bed, I didn't replay explicit images. I replayed restraint. The way his voice dropped when he spoke the truth. The way his hand felt steady, not claiming, inviting. It surprised me how much that stayed. I realized then that passion didn't always roar. Sometimes it waited. Sometimes it watched. Sometimes it chose not to take because it knew it would be met instead. And as sleep finally pulled me under, one thought settled clearly, calmly, undeniably in my mind. Tomorrow wasn't a question anymore. It was a promise forming. The next night didn't rush to meet us. It waited. I got to the gym late on purpose, the sky already dark, the parking lot half empty. My chest felt steady, not calm exactly, but ready. Whatever had been forming between us had crossed into something real the moment we'd agreed not to pretend anymore. I spotted Ronan near the lockers before he saw me. He looked different, not softer, not guarded, just present. Like he'd already arrived somewhere internally and was waiting for me to catch up. "Hey," he said when our eyes met. "Hey." No small talk. No circling. We stood there for a second, the hum of the gym filling the space where words didn't need to go. "Come on," he said gently. I cleared out early. We didn't go far. Just the same stretching room, glass walls, dim lights, familiar ground. The door stayed unlocked. Nothing hidden. Nothing secret. That mattered. He stopped a few feet away, giving me space even now. Always offering choice. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah. I am." That was all it took. He stepped closer, not fast, not tentative, just sure. His hands came to my sides, firm and grounding, thumbs warmed through the fabric of my shirt. When he leaned in, it wasn't hurried. It was deliberate. A meeting, not a taking. The kiss, if you could call it that, stayed soft, blurred at the edges, more breath than pressure. Anything more explicit stayed off frame, wrapped in shadow and intention. The heat was there, unmistakable, but it didn't need to prove itself. He rested his forehead against mine afterward, breathing slow, steady. "Still okay?" he murmured. "More than," I said. We stayed like that a moment longer than necessary. Then he pulled back, not away, just enough to look at me. "I want this," he said. "But I want it right." I smiled, something easing in my chest. "Me too." Later, we walked out together, not separate cars this time, not separate directions. Just side by side into the night air, shoulders brushing, steps matching without trying. There was no grand declaration. No dramatic promise. Just the quiet understanding that we'd chosen each other, clearly, calmly, without force. At home, lying in bed, I didn't feel restless. I felt settled. Like something that had been hovering finally landed. I understood then that passion didn't have to explode to be powerful. Sometimes it arrived slowly, built on patience, trust, and the courage to stay present. And as sleep found me, one final thought settled in, not loud, not urgent, but certain. I wasn't stuck that night at the gym. I'd been found.